Hello, sir. Welcome to TTIS. Today we have with us our very own renowned music director, Prabuddha Banerjee. Sir, you studied mechanical engineering from Jadavpur University. Did you find a strong connection between both the worlds of music and technology? Because, as you say, that you came back to music again and again while working as well, and you balanced your professional and musical career together.
Well, yes and no. Yes, because in today's context, technology plays a huge role in music production, and because of my technical background, it definitely helped me in getting used to the softwares, effectively using the softwares without taking anybody's help, going into the depth of the softwares. That is one point. Another thing that has got very little to do with art, but it has got very much to do with the management of the field in which I am. That is the right kind of discipline, the right kind of approach. See, I did my first film, and then my next film happened 4 years after that. So I was heavily into advertisements. In fact, out of this 19 years of my musical career, till 2010, I was very much into the advertisement world, and I was known as an ad guy and not as a music director for films. So, in ads, what happens is that the division line between the business of art and the art of business, it gets blurred very often. In fact, I have a mind to write an article. I do not know whether I'll be able to write it. Is doing music for advertisements really an art? It's not very clear to me. But anyway, coming back to the point of being a mechanical engineer and having a background in the corporate world for 18 years, what happens is that I have found that when you pitch for an ad or when you are giving presentations for advertisement to the clients, most of the musicians, they do not understand the corporate language. And there I have a specific advantage. These people, they find that here is a guy who is exactly speaking in the same language as we do. He's talking of the terminal objective, he's talking of the consumer connect. But when he's delivering his job, there is no trace of any cut and dry corporate feel in it. Then he's an 100% artist. So I think I'm treated more as a complete package who will understand the business needs of the client and translate it in an artistic medium and deliver it. So that is the only connection. Otherwise, studying mechanical engineering has not helped in music, and I don't think any engineering can really help in it because music is something which is much more abstract. It is much more emotion driven, and it does not have any hard and fast rule, except for the grammar of music, where you have the 11 notes. I'm treating the 12th note as the same note, just one octave higher, where you have all the 11 notes with the sharps and the flats and all these things. And except for the basic structure of the grammar, how you use the grammar and how you create an emotion and how you reach it to the millions of people, how you touch their heart, that can never be mathematically or scientifically defined. I don't think it can even be empirically defined. There is no hard and fast formula for that. So in that way, there is no connection between engineering and music. But engineering does teach you to think in a very organized manner, because when you get a job, it's not only about creating the music, but it's also about creating the product. And there are a lot of administrative things involved in that also. In fact, even when you're doing music, especially in today's context, when there's so much of computed music or programmed music, as we say, management of the tracks, naming the tracks, saving the files in the right way, how to send them in the right manner, when to send them, to whom to send, how to keep a track of all the various disciplines in the filmmaking, because most of the goof ups in the films happen during the post production stage. So, those things require a very disciplined and organized mind and administrative capability. And there, engineering definitely helps you because engineering trains you to think analytically and break down the steps and move in a very planned way. But creating music has got absolutely no connection with the engineering, I think.
Uh, Sir, how was your experience of working at a film for the first time, and as you said, it was many people's first film who are much acclaimed right now. So how was your experience at that time?
See, it was a mixture of it, but definitely it was a mixture of joy because I could not first believe that I'm getting a film where, I mean, in fact, that was my first. My let me tell you a very interesting thing in this aspect. In my first film was Soumitra Chattopadhyay, and Soumitra Chattopadhyay's last film Obhijan was scored by me. Anyway, so definitely it was very exciting, and but the interesting thing is that I wasn't very apprehensive. Somehow I had a gut feeling that I can crack it. In fact, most of the music which I did for the film, they went without a scratch. They were approved without a scratch. Not only that, when we took the film to Chennai for the re-recording in Four Frame Studio owned by Priyadarshan, there are also very experienced people were there. The sound engineer there was Mr. Deepan Chatterjee, who was the sound designer of Sholay. In fact, he had acted as an assistant of R.D. Burman for quite a few films. So he was doing the re-recording. Then we had our Anup Mukherjee, who is also a five times national award winner. He was the sound designer. And everyone said only positive and positive things about the music. And many a times it happens, I've heard from other music directors, or that the first time when you're doing a music, a lot of corrections are taking place during the mixing stage, that you mute this track, this is not sounding right, or this music is not sounding appropriate. Nothing of that sort happened in Bhalo Theko. So in that way, it only gave me a lot of confidence, and it reassured me a lot because I had just left my job, and it was a huge risk at the time. I was 41 years old and I had a 5-year old kid at that time, though my wife was working, but even then it was quite a risk. So it only made me more confident. But after that, somehow getting my next film took quite some time. My next film was a Hindi film, Via Darjeeling. But by that time, when I was in my second film, I had done sufficient advertisements, and advertisements helped me a lot in doing films because advertisements need a lot of precision. You have to make a communicative music in a span of 10 seconds, 15 seconds, 25 seconds, 30 seconds, whatever it is. And that is something very challenging. You have to be bang on right. There is no prelude, there is no interlude, there is no intro, there is no outro. You have to get right to the point. So that is very challenging, and that helped me in doing music where you know exactly when to start, when to end, how to start, how to end, with what to start and with what to end. So definitely it was a very exciting thing for me. But when I reflect back now, I realized that I wasn't very nervous or apprehensive about my first film. Somehow my gut feeling was there inside me, and it worked.
Apart from cinemas, did you ever compose music for Bengali theaters?
Yes, I did much late. This came much later on. It's a after doing many films. It was 4 years back. I mean, in my 19 years career, after 15 years, Shumon Mukhopadhyay, Lal, for whom I worked in other films for Lal, he and his brother Neil, they approached me that they are doing a completely new version of Arun Mukhopadhyay of Chetona, who had made Dukhi Mukhi Jodha based on Miguel Cervantes' Don Quixote. They are making it in the name of Don Take Bhalo Lage, and they asked me whether I would be interested in scoring. I have always been a big admirer and a fan of Arun Mukhopadhyay as a theater personality. In fact, during my student days, I remember I have seen Jagannath 5 times. Marich Shongbad, I saw then, and recently I saw their version, so 2 times. But I have always been a great admirer, and I could not believe myself that I am being offered to do music for Chetona, where Arun Mukhopadhyay's script will be that he will not be directing. Direction will be by Neil Sujan Mukherjee, and Don Quixote will be played by Lal Shuman Mukhopadhyay. I readily accepted it, needless to say. But this was for the first time I was apprehensive. and a lot of technical questions were coming in my mind, that when I do a film, I do music frame wise, and the time duration never changes. But in a theater, it is very dynamic. The time you take to deliver a dialogue today may not be the same that you deliver tomorrow. Every day the timings change. So how would I do it? Number one. Number two, Don Take Bhalo Lage was a combination of live music and pre-recorded background score. And there are few places in Don Take Bhalo Lage where the background score pre-recorded starts, and after a time the live music joins in, and after a time the background music fades away, but the live music continues. So how to synchronize all these things? I had a lot of technical things in my mind, but then one of my biggest rewards was that when I was attending the rehearsals for Don Take Bhalo Lage, uh, after a few rehearsals one day Arun Mukhopadhyay came, and during the interval break, and this is my biggest reward as far as doing theater is concerned, he came, he held me with his whole two hands and said that you are changing the sound of Bengali theater music, you are setting a new yardstick. And I mean, I was really moved that way, coming from a personality like Arun Mukhopadhyay. So after that I have done another theater, that too by Chetona, Rani Creusa, which was which is based on a Greek mythology. It was scripted by Bratto Bosu, and it was directed by Neil Sujon Mukhopadhyay. And there the music was completely different. There was no live music. It was completely background music. And while doing that, I had to do a lot of research work as to what was the kind of music during the medieval age, what was the kind of music used in the Byzantine church, how different is that music from the Christian music, because the Greek, they had temples, they did not have church. I was always scared that while creating this music, it should not sound like Gregorian chant, because I used a lot of vocal music there. In fact, I used my son also, because he is very good at all these vocal effects and all these things. So, but I was always very much worried. So this was a very interesting exercise for me, because it was not just about doing music, but it was also about doing a lot of research work. I used to listen to theater music of Sophocles, of National Theatre in YouTube. Now you have the YouTube, so you can get all these references. So it was quite a bit of a homework, and Rani Creusa music was something which was completely different from Dawn. So now let us see. We have plans of doing another play, but I would not like to reveal now, because that's a very big project and a dream project of mine. But that too, it will be in collaboration with Arun Mukhopadhyay and Chetona Sujon. So let us see. But this was like a breath of fresh air. I mean, not that I got stagnated in films or something, but this was, I would say, another window opened up. After 15 years of intense music in films and advertisements, suddenly I got to do music for theater, which is something very visceral, because when I perform on stage with Dawn, you can directly see the audience reaction, and you can't go wrong, because there's not a second chance. It is not like a recording, it's full live, it's a concert. So that has its own kick, it has its own challenge. So another window has opened up, and I'm really fortunate to life that I got this opportunity, and that too from a theater group like Chetona.
And now this collaboration has incited a lot of excitement within us, because we are also waiting for it. This to
I'll try my
watch the
best.
phenomenal collaboration.
Mm.
Okay, so please tell us about your favorite instrument. Is learning an instrument or doing any co-curricular activities significant, especially at our youth?
I think it should be made mandatory. I mean, mandatory for people who have a gift for music. You see, whether it is learning any instrument, or whether it is singing, or whether it is any sports activity, these are activities which really help you in development of the brain. For example, I'll tell you one thing. It is said, see, the left side controls the right side of our body, the left side of the brain, and the other way around. I do not know how far it is true, but I read it somewhere, and in fact, some people told me also that musicians are a rare breed who, at times, can use both sides of their brain almost simultaneously. Otherwise, normally it never happens. It is either the left or the right side which is active at a time. There is some time gap. In case of musicians, it is practically negligible, maybe in terms of nanoseconds. For example, see, when you are playing an instrument with both hands, you see your left hand and your right hand, they are doing completely two different activities. When you are playing the violin, your left hand is moving on the fretboard and your right hand is controlling the bow. So I mean they are, and it's a combination of these two activities that is creating the music. If there is a lapse or there is a lag between the signals being sent by the left side and the right side of the brain, your music will never come up. So if you are a musician, you are a rare breed. Now just think, when you're in the molding stage at a very tender age, you're a student. At that time, if you undergo this kind of exercise, it not only increases your aesthetic power, it not only increases your imagination, it not only gives you a means of very powerful stress release, but it also helps you in developing your brain. And needless to say, if your brain gets developed in a healthy way, it will help you in your studies also. So that's a bonus. So I think it should be made mandatory. Why only music? It may be music, it may be any game, whatever it is. When you're playing, say, if you're playing cricket, your eyesight and how you're responding with the bat, or your eyesight and how you're responding with the ball, they are very different activities, but you are coordinating them in such a well synchronized manner, and you're the right kind of synergy has to take place. Otherwise you cannot be a good bowler or a good batsman or a good fielder, or similarly with football and for any game, for example. So it definitely helps, and I think extracurricular activities should be mandatory. Let me tell you, I'm very lucky. I studied in a school where a lot of importance was given to extracurricular activities. I remember one incident. At the time, I was in, I think, class 5 or class 6. I have been in the school's concerts right from my childhood, and we had to do a lot of rehearsals because our concerts were all musicals. Robin Hood, Aladdin, this, that, were a lot of songs and a lot of dance, and our rehearsals were during the class periods. So all those who were involved in the concerts, they used to miss their classes. My mother was a professor in one of the colleges in South Calcutta, and at one point of time, she was a bit alarmed that I'm only doing rehearsals, but I'm not doing my studies much. So she came one day to our school and she met the vice principal and told him that I don't want my son to participate in the concerts because I feel that it is doing great damage to his studies. The vice principal looked at my mother and very politely but curtly said, I think you're absolutely right, Mrs. Banerjee. You start looking for a new school where your son will do his studies well. But if he stays here, the concert also stays with him. It's mandatory. So just think of those days. Now, I'm pretty surprised. This is something I remember. My mother herself was a very good Rabindra Sangit singer. But the priorities of parents change. During our times, as I told you, that the main priority was that you either have to be an engineer or a doctor or chartered accountant or whatever it is. So as we have said, I would say that it should be made mandatory. It may be painting, it may be drama, it may be singing, it may be playing any instrument, it may be any sports activity, whatever it is. But these are a must in overall development because they have a very holistic effect in you during the stage when you're being molded, when you're growing up.
Uh, Sir, What are your views about world music, where Western and Oriental music merges? And what is your take on the development of music in India compared to the Western world?
Well, world music, I mean, this is a term I do not know. I mean, what exactly is meant by world music, I don't really understand. But if you ask me to cite an example of world music, I would say world music is such a music which is not deeply into the classical world of music, but it has an universal appeal. And the first example which comes in my mind as the best possible example of world music is Rabindra Sangeet. If you see the tunes of Rabindra Sangeet, even if a person doesn't understand the lyrics, they will get a feel. If the lyrics are translated to that person will be very much deeply into the songs. So that world music does not, in my opinion, it does not necessarily mean a fusion of Western music and Eastern music. And all I can say is that there was a time when a lot of fusion music has taken place. But how many bands have really survived doing fusion music? Only those bands have survived who are extremely strong in some fundamental form of music, either Western classical music or Eastern classical music or jazz. The best example is Shakti, where John McLaughlin is a maestro in jazz. He started off as a jazz guitarist. And the others we all know what they are, El Shankar or Viku Vinayakram or Zakir Hussain. Later on, other people like Shankar Mahadevan has joined, Shilva Ganesan has joined. In fact, there was a time when even Larry Coryell had played. So, but they are all masters in their own field. But by mixing up this music with that music, I don't think it really creates world music. And many a times I find this fusion music very vague and I find it very pointless. They can be a good exposition of skill, how fast you can play, how skillfully you can play, but that is a music which leaves you awestruck. But I doubt how much of these kind of music can leave you in tears, how much of this kind of music can really move you. Will you be able to hum a tune of a fusion music? I don't think so. You will remember it also visually, that my God, how he was playing. That man was playing the drums like a monster. He was playing the guitar really crazy. That man's fingers were moving like a spider on the piano keyboard. But will you be able to hum the tune? One or two pieces definitely you can. For example, Shakti's Lotus Feet. You can hum it, at least the first two lines. Then it becomes very complex. And another thing is that this type of fusion music in concerts, while they are very enjoyable, to a layman, I don't think they will spend hours together listening to fusion music. They would rather spend listening to folk music, which is easy, communicable, and at the same time have a very high depth and high degree of philosophy in them. Be it Lalon Phukir, be it Pete Seeger, be it Woody Guthrie, whoever it is, they have a philosophy. They have a humane nature. They have a message for the human race. And they are very easy, hummable tunes that can go down the generations. So I would say folk music is world music because folk music has a connect throughout the world. If you see the folk music of the mountains, if you listen to the music of the Northeast in our country, if you listen to Korean folk music, if you listen to Chinese folk music, if you listen to music of the Smoky Mountains in the United States, if you listen to the music of the Highland, the Irish, the Scottish, all of them are pentatonic. They are all pentatonic scales. And you need not do a very well structured fusion music with them. They will gel automatically. You can try an Irish tune and you can land up in a tune by Bhupen Hajarika, or you can start a Bhupen Hajarika tune and you can land up in a bluegrass banjo tune from the Smoky Mountains. It is very easy. You don't have to go through a very complex musical exercise of notations and this chord and that chord and tonal shift and this, that. You don't need to do that. So that, in my opinion, is world music. World music, in my, I would like to define world music in such a way that when a particular style of music originating from some corner of our planet is so fundamental, it is so, what should I say, it is so communicable and relatable to the rest of the world that it can easily blend. It is like water. It will take the shape of any vessel where you put it. That is world music. World music does not necessarily mean East meets West and creates a third form of music. No, that to me, at the most, I would say, is a very interesting exercise. But I doubt how much of these pieces, they are all superb, technically superb, skillful. Skill level is, I mean, it's unthinkable, the skill level, what they play. But how many people can sing them? How many people do really seriously listen to this kind of music in their pastime? How many people do resort to this kind of music when they are lonely, when they are sad, or when they're extremely happy? I don't think so. So that is not world music. World music is a music which appeals to the whole world, as simple as that.
Sir, can you share with us your experience of playing music in live performances?
Uh, I am not much of a live performer, definitely, and I don't think that I'll ever be a very good live performer because, in order to be a live performer, the kind of skill level, the kind of practice, rewaj that you have, and also the kind of personality, the kind of charisma that you need on stage to keep the people absolutely mesmerized and hypnotized. I don't think I possess those qualities. I am more of a behind the scene person. Uh, and I've never been into much live performance. Whatever live performance I have been is during my days in Jadavpur University and later on with Nagar Philomel. And now sometimes once in a blue moon with a few friends of mine, I mean, like Chandrabindu is on stage, they will come and request me to play a few songs, but that is not regular live music. But I can feel the difference because it's very obvious that in live music, the success is much more gratifying in nature because you have to be precise, you have to be bang on, you will not get a second chance. Number two, I think live music is much more uncertain and challenging because you do not know the mood which the audience has today, whether the same mood will be carried over tomorrow. You are continuously challenging yourself, you are continuously breaking down yourself, and you are exercising your presence of mind to the maximum extent when you're on stage to make the show successful. So that definitely is a kick. But as I said, in order to do that successfully, first of all, you must have a certain level of skill which only comes through practice, which I don't because I'm not a professional instrumentalist. I play for my own films or I play for others songs in recordings. I make 10 mistakes, 20 mistakes, and I then rectify them, and then the final product comes up. But that is not something you would do on stage. So, and number one, and number two, another very important thing is the personality, the charisma. See, Kishore Kumar was one person as a playback singer. He was so much successful, and he was also successful on stage, his performance. Or if you see other people, I mean, all the international performers, you just see their personality. Uh, 70,000, 80,000 people in a stadium, they are all singing together somebody's songs. You need to have something extra in your personality. That X factor should be there. If you don't possess that factor, and I very strongly believe that I don't possess that, then you should not attempt live music. But the difference between studio music and live music is that live music is much more challenging. You need to be very skillful, you need to be very level headed, and you need to keep your cool, and your presence of mind is at its peak demand. Only then you can be a successful live performer. Whereas in studio music, The most important thing is that there the challenge is different. You have to be extremely patient. You have to be physically very fit because sometimes things don't work out, and you keep on recording for hours together. There have been instances when I have started recording at 7 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the evening, and the recording has maybe ended at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, and then I'm driving back home. My eyes are almost closing with fatigue. But you have to maintain that consistency. So that's another challenge. Both have their own challenges, but the nature of these challenges are very different as far as being a studio or session musician is concerned, and being a live musician.
So we know that the professional musicians do practice a lot in the morning or in the at a particular time of the day. So they do a lot of riyaz, and do the music directors also require that sort of riyaz, regular riyaz and practices?
Well, I don't. I mean, I'm sure there are many music directors who are very good uh, musicians also. For example, I'll tell you Bikram Ghosh. Bikram Ghosh is heavily into music direction, and he is one of the finest tabla players. It is very obvious that Bikram practices a lot. Otherwise, he cannot perform like that on stage. So he is able to do. I would say that he's very good at time management. That he knows exactly how much time to give behind a practice and how much time to give behind music direction. Devajyoti Misro. He's an excellent violinist. So I'm sure he practices, if not like Bikram, who also has a very vibrant and very fruitful career as a tabla player. Mm. But Debojyoti also does a lot of live concerts, and he also plays the live violin there, and he plays it like any other professional violinist. So I'm sure they practice. So they do the time management. In my case, as I said, just because I am not into live music, I don't rewatch that much. If I have a recording or something, or I have to play my own stuff, then I practice. Definitely I practice, but then again it stops. It's not that every day I have a fixed time, or if not a fixed time, I have a definite allotted duration during the 24 hours in the day, that when I decide that okay, now I'll play the piano, or I'll play the guitar, or I'll play the ukulele, or I'll play the chongruan, or whatever it is. uh, this is number one. And number two is that, you see, these people, they are focused on one particular instrument, so they try to know everything of something. In my case, just because I am a sort of a multi-instrumentalist who playing several instruments, and the techniques of each and every instrument is very different from the other. In my case, nothing happens. I try to know something of everything. So now I specialize in none of them. I think I'm a very good example of jack of all trades, master of none. I do a little bit of this, I do a little bit of this, I do a little bit of this. That has its own advantage also, because not always do I play all the instruments myself. I also hire musicians who are professionals in the respective things. The advantage is that when you are giving music direction in the studio to the musicians, you can tell in a very pinpointed and well focused way what to play. And sometimes, suppose they are facing some kind of difficulty in playing it, you can exactly tell them that you play it in this way, it will happen. You use this finger to play it, it will happen. Now that I use somebody that you use the little finger and do it, he will use the little finger much better than me because he has got a practiced hand, but I have got a practiced mind. So I can tell him that don't use the third finger, but use the little finger. So my practice is more towards making other people practice and perform for me. So I don't practice much. I make other people practice for me.
Okay, so the music directors need a lot of practice of mind rather than the uh,
Everyone needs a practice of mind. Each one's
right.
nature of practice is different from the other. My main practice of mind is to see that I'm getting what I want from a specialist. See, I'm not a singer, but Big singers are singing for us. Why will they listen to us? I cannot sing like them, but they will only listen if they know that here is a person who is very clear about what is to be done, and whatever he is telling how it is to be done is not something wrong. He may not be able to do it himself, but he knows that if he can make me do it, it will really sound good. So my practice is that, and my practice is, I think the first and foremost practice for me as a music director is to make the musician feel that the music is his own. That sense of belongingness I have to create in that person, that motivation and that belongingness. Only then the right kind of feel will come. He will feel that this is my tune, I am playing this. The moment you find that somebody is behaving like a paid performer, the feel will never come. Then that person is just only taking a bird's eye view into the thing. But you need to get into the mud. You need to be smeared with the mud. Otherwise, you'll never get the feel of the mud. Rather, on the contrary, the mud will appear to be very deceptively beautiful with the sunlight glazing on the mud. So you need to be in it. So my job is to push each and every musician into the mud and make sure that they're neck deep into the mud. Only then I'll get what I want. So that is my practice.
Sir, in several Bengali acclaimed films of this era, such as in Nagar Kirtan, Jeshtoputra, and very recently in Lokhi Chele, we have witnessed you in the role of a music director. Us, the audience, get to see or hear the final production of a film in the theatre halls, but many of us are unbeknownst to the facts that happen behind the camera. While composing a film song and giving music to it, how does a music director synchronize that song with the emotions of a particular scene of that film? And is there any basic rules or unique ways to do that?
I don't think there is any basic rule. Of course, you sometimes you are able to grasp the right kind of avenue because of your experience, but there is no hard and fast rule. But I think, see, everyone is engaged for a job for his or her talent and the capability of delivering. So obviously, this is a capability which I, like many other music directors, we have, that when you see something, you know that if I compose this kind of a tune, then you may not be composing it very consciously. Sometimes it just comes in your mind. I trust my instinct. In fact, when I compose for a song, I don't use any instrument. I first try to sing the song completely with my bare voice, and then I try putting in some chords, or maybe I just strum the guitar for the purpose of the scale and the pitch. Nothing more than that. So I mean, this is a capability. I mean, if you ask a writer that you write a mystery thriller, and the writer writes it, how will he? And now, if you ask him, how do you know that this is going to be a mystery thriller? He knows what kind of lines he will use, what kind of characters he's going to develop, how is he going to describe those characters. So these are niche areas in art. Everyone has a niche capability, and the main thing is to understand the nuances so that that distinguishes one form of music for a film to the other. Today you are composing music for a comedy film, tomorrow you are composing music for a very serious film. Every time you are changing yourself. So there are no hard and fast rules. But as I said, that experience counts. You are able to come up with something, cook up something much faster, because a lot of things stay in your memory, especially things which did not work in the past. You get more and more armed that I tried this thing and it just fell through. It didn't work. So that's one thing which is out. So, but I think if you think the other way around, that what worked, not necessarily you should follow that route, because then you will start repeating yourself. You have to keep on challenging yourself all the time. But experience helps you in taking safeguard against the pitfalls of things that didn't work. But I don't think you should use your experience and keep on doing things which worked in the past and that they will work in the future. Then you lose your USP. You keep on repeating things. And as far as, see, behind the scenes, that is true for anything. That is even true for an actor whose role, who starts right from the script reading stage to the final delivery or during dubbing. So these are very complex processes and these are very painstaking processes. But that is, I think, true for anyone. We admire the Taj Mahal, but just think of the people who constructed it. Just think of the people who made those floral and the intricate designs and the filigree in the stones. So that is true for any art form. And I think it is better that those painstaking efforts do not come forward, because then they will reduce the entertainment quotient of the final product which is being viewed by the audience. The audience need not and are not supposed to also know how much painstaking a thing is done, because if that pain becomes too apparent, then I mean, what are you going to enjoy, the pain of a person creating something or the thing which he has created? So it's better that it stays behind the scene. No point in bringing it forward. You take the pain and make sure that things sound very good in the end, or they look very good in the end. That is what is important.
And sir, does in a similar way the background score of a film is also produced?
Yeah, background. I think for me, I'll tell you, I have a way of doing background score. Ideally speaking, I would like to have a scene without any music whatsoever. So I first try to see that whether the silence or just the dialogues and the sound is working. To me, film background score, and the name itself is suggestive, it's background score, should only be used when the visual and or the the audio means either the dialogue or the sounds which are happening. Suppose you are walking on a road talking to a friend, so you have the sound of the cars, you have the sound of other people walking, talking, laughing, and the two characters who are talking. If that is good enough to communicate the exact mood and telling enough to communicate the story 100%, I don't think you need background score. In my opinion, and it's my philosophy of doing background score, is that I will only give music if I find that the sound, the real sound, and the visual, they are not telling the whole story, and it may leave the audience somewhat confused. Or or there are other cases where you need to connect one part of the story which had happened half an hour earlier. You need to connect with whatever is happening now in the film real time, and that may not be connected automatically. It all depends on the strength of the music. You create a late motive. You create a theme for a
Can you
film.
repeat the last lines, because it just stopped
Okay.
because of the net connection, I think.
See, the most important role of the background music is when you realize that the audio and the visual that is happening, the combination of these two, or even silence, is not enough to tell the whole story. If the audio and the visual is telling enough in nature to communicate the story, then you don't need background score. You only need the background score to support and complete the storytelling process. That is my philosophy of doing background music. In fact, there are many times in a film when in a scene I have done a background score, I run it twice, once with the background score and once without the background score. If I find that there is no tangible difference in the scene with the background score and without the background score, I ruthlessly throw it out. I simply throw it out. I don't use the background score. There is another utility of a background score, that is to connect the various threads of the plot. Suppose something happened half an hour earlier in the duration of the real time duration of the film, and you need to connect with this, and you find that if I give the background score and create a recall value in the mind of the audience, then it will be easier for them to connect with the plot. So you create a theme music. and you use it as a signature. So I mean, then then there is a meaning. Or you create a background music to intensify something. For example, I'll give a very common example. That mouth organ theme in Sholay, or the Gabbar Singh theme, that oh, that sound. I mean, there is nothing to connect the story, but those signatures were very enjoyable moments. People say, "Ah, now again Gabbar Singh, we are going to see him." Or when that mouth organ is happening, they will say, "Oh, the relationship between Jaya Bachchan and Amitabh Bachchan is going to develop further, and she is a widow. Let's see what happens." So it is adding a bit of spice to the story. But otherwise, always I would feel that background score should only be used for helping the story further. That's all. Songs in films, I would say, see, songs in films have got two purposes. In our country, songs in films, in most of the films, I find that when songs are happening, the story stops rolling for the time being. Everything stops. The song takes place, the people listen to the song, they see the scenes, and once the song stops, again the story continues. So until and unless it's a musical, if it is a musical film like Sound of Music or whatever, or Moulin Rouge, or I mean, there it is, the whole thing is musical. It's a kind of opera. Even in our country, there have been musicals. So those are different, but otherwise, usage of songs in films, I don't find much films where the songs are really participative in nature and they are augmenting the story or they are helping in the progress of the story. In most of the films, I find that when songs are happening, whatever language it is, you'll find that the story stops. The song finishes, again the story resumes. Then the purpose of another purpose of songs nowadays, it has always been like this, but nowadays I'm finding this more and more, and that is because of the digital marketing, that using a song as a tool for marketing. Very often we are asked to create a song which is not in the film, but you just use the song as a tool for marketing. So I mean, I'm not very much in favor of this, because I think that if the song clicks and becomes very popular and people go and watch the film and then they find that the song is not there in the film, they may feel cheated because they went with that expectation. If you give a declaration that okay fine, this is only for promotional purpose, but we have used this song because it conveys the mood of the film, we have taken the help of a song in the trailer or as a music video, just to reach out to people and tell them that look, here comes a film whose content is something which we are expressing in the form of a song. If that is made amply clear, then it's fine. Otherwise, but so, this is you'll never find this happening in international movies. You will never find an international movie. Very rarely you will find that which is there, uh, where songs are the selling point of the movie. No, you'll never find this. This only happens in our country, and there's a reason for that. India is a very musical country, and where the usage of songs in all our social functions, be it marriage, during the birth of a child, even after death, during the funeral ceremony, during the various harvesting seasons, change of seasons, worship of gods, god it is, everywhere we use songs, and songs are a part and parcel of our day-to-day social life. So naturally, right from the beginning of history of Indian cinema, songs have formed a very vital part of the Indian cinema. But I am holding a bit different viewpoint at this stage, because after globalization, when people are exposed to various styles of movies, and it is very obvious that the language of movies is also changing very fast. The stylization of movies is also changing very fast. There, I think if you still continue with this tradition, it can take place parallelly. But at the same time, you should also venture out into new kind of soundscapes, using lesser songs, but to more concentrate more on the film. If the film demands a song, that's a different question, but not to forcibly try and dovetail a song into a film. I think then it's only good for the progress of Indian cinema in the international scenario. You see, all Bengali films in the past who have made it to the international festivals, be it Pother Pachadi, be it films by Mrinal Sen, Hrithik Ghatak, was it because of songs? It was not because of songs. Satyajit Ray's most acclaimed Gopika in Bhagavan is a musical. That's a different. But the heights to which his first film, and later on some other films also in the Berlin Film Festival and all, when they didn't have any songs. Neither were songs created for their promotion. It was not. Similarly, if you see Akale Shandar, Mrinal Sen's, won so many foreign awards, there's no song. There is a song, yeah. There's that Hey Sama Rohini Ray by Sholli Chaudhary. But that is they are singing, it's like a sound. It is not a created song with dance and trees and hills and rain and whatever. It's not like that. So that is why my viewpoint is a bit different as far as the usage of songs in films are concerned. Most of the time, I feel that the story stops, and after the song is over, again the story is resumed. That is something I don't like.
Nowadays, in some cases, our elder ones sometimes tell us that our co-curricular activities may distract us from focusing on studies and it may affect our academic career as well. What is your take on it? As you said earlier as well, that it happened to you as well. So, how did you
I
overcome
think
when you grew up?
I think it is not the co-curricular activities. The most distracting thing in today's world is the smartphone and the social media. That is the most distracting thing. Another distracting thing happened many years ago when the music channels came. When the music channels came, they very smoothly developed a bad habit amongst the audience. People stopped listening to songs, but they started watching songs. In our childhood, we had no music videos. We only used to listen to music. That was something much more focused. But with Channel V, MTV, then later on other things, where the concept of music videos came, people started watching these videos. And it was a combination of watching the video, watching the singers, and listening to music. Gradually, you'll find that more and more budget was being allocated to the visuals. Awestruck, people were awestruck by the visuals, very glamorous visuals. I think that is what is distracting. Listening to music is not a distraction, but hours and hours of surfing and watching visuals in YouTube or in Facebook and social media. I think in today's context, the biggest problem is the smartphone and the social media. That is, while the social media has really helped in getting people together, finding long lost friends. Even I have my own group in my school or my university. That is something else. But otherwise, you will find that we are always busy communicating people who are not in front of us, but we are totally ignoring people who are front of us. I watch the young generation going to cafes and all. They are all sitting together. They don't chat. They are all looking at their own respective cell phones. What is this? Then why are you together? You are busy communicating with someone far away, but you're not communicating with your friend who is just sitting across the table. That is a distraction. I don't think co-curricular activities are the distraction. The distraction is the smartphone and the social media. Another thing, this very easy availability of information, that is also a distraction. People fill up their heads with required, not so much required information. They stuff their head and their heads get jumbled up. What they don't realize is that information is not knowledge, data is not knowledge. You overstuff your head with lot of data, many of them which you don't require also, but you overstuff your head, you lose your focus. Those are the distractions. Co-curricular activities are not discussed. And then where are the co-curricular? How many children play nowadays? I don't find children playing. They are always on their smartphones, or they are playing video games. They are playing PUBG, this, that. They don't play. No physical exercise, nothing. So those are not distractions. Distractions are, and I don't blame this generation. I blame my generation. We are responsible for what you people are going through today, because we created some very toxic gadgets like smartphones, social media, this, that, and we have made you swallow it. And now we are blaming you for that. No point in that. It is we who are to be blamed. We have created your world, and we have screwed up things very gloriously. And we are gradually making the world not a better place to live, but a very self-centered, selfish, isolated place to live. And we are compelling your generation to live like islands. We are making you forget the value of comradeship, the value of friendship. We are we are making you to forget the pleasure of sitting together and listening to music. Everyone is listening with a earphone, isolated. You're not sharing the music. Everything is customized and personalized. There is no concept of sharing. Art is something to be shared. That is a distraction, not the co-curricular activities. Sorry, I think I went a bit off the off the topic, but this is my considered
Absolutely, it's a
opinion.
pleasure to listen to you. It's a big pleasure to listen to you. So, lastly, what is your message for the young readers of TTIS?
I don't know whether I am in a position to sermonize, but all I can say is that whatever talents you have, nurture that, follow that. Don't waste your time behind social media and all these things. Do your own stuff and be what you are. Don't try to be like someone else. You are your best friend. Do justice to yourself. We are all ruining ourselves. Don't do that. That is my message. That's all.
Thank you so much, sir. On behalf of TTIS, our earnest
Thank
regards
you.
to
My
you.
pleasure. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. It was my pleasure. Namaskar.
No.